بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، سيدنا وحبيبنا وشفيعنا ونور قلوبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نوينا التعلم والتعليم وتذكر وتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي لهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي لهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علم لدني ومشرب صافي لهني ومشرب صافي الهني يا وهاب يا غني. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه في كل لحظة أبدا عدد نعم الله وأفضاله. اللهم آتنا من لدنك رحمة وعلمنا من لدنك علما. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم ألهمنا علما نفقه به أوامرك ونواهيك، وارزقنا فهما نعرف به كيف نناجيك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك فهم النبي وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك فهم النبي وحفظ المرسلين وإلهام الملائكة المقربين في عافية يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أغننا بالعلم وزينا بالحلم وأكرمنا بالتقوى وجملنا بالعافية يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم إنا نستودعك ما قرأناه وما نقرأه في هذا المجلس وما قبله وما بعده، فاحفظه علينا حتى ترده إلينا وقت احتياجنا إليه يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم أكرمنا بنور الفهم وأخرجنا من ظلمات الوهم، وافتح لنا أبواب رحمتك وانشر علينا حكمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم يا من مقاليد الأمور كلها بيده وإليه يرجع أمر كله، يا فتاح يا عليم، يا فتاح يا عليم، يا فتاح يا عليم، افتح علينا فتحا قريبا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي وسدد لساني واهد قلبي وافعل كذلك بأحبابي أبدا، وارزقنا كمال فتوح العارف والفقه في الدين مع كمال الإخلاص والصدق واليقين والعافية والغنى والنصر والحفظ والنفع والانتفاع وخيرات الدارين وعلوم الأولين والآخرين. آمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين 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 يا رب العالمين الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله الحمد لله اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Alhamdulillah, we are continuing with our class. So last week I went into the introduction, just like a muqaddimah, an intro, into these classes. But however, these classes have been going on since 2020, right? 2020, right? So it's been about 2 years, right, having these classes, or 1.5 years. Um, and inshallah, we will continue right from where we left off. Right? And we have also we've also now I think informed right last week right that if you had missed out on the previous lessons, that you can always catch up. You can always catch up um, either via the YouTube, right? The YouTube has the classes from last year, or you from past 2 years, in fact, right? Or there's a Spreaker account. Right? Spreaker is basically a podcast. Right? It's a podcast, and like for me, I've been on this podcast for since 2017. So I think 5 years, so almost coming to the 6th year of this podcast. And I like it. I like this podcast because it has folders. You can actually keep things in folders. So if you know how to like maneuver your way, just download Spreaker podcast, like Spreaker. It's like spread speaker kind of thing. So Spreaker, the R there. Right. And then you search my name, right, Farna Munshi, right? And then you just click on more. You should be able to see like a whole lot of folders, right? So this is why I like the podcast, right? You can go by folders, and then you can just choose a folder that you want to listen to, and there's all the classes there, right? And then you can just tune in, and also it takes up lesser of your internet if you're on the go, if you're on your way to work, you're or somewhere, right? It takes less of your internet than as compared to YouTube. I mean, if you're particular about these things, which I was, right, because I used to have very low internet on the go, right? So Allah alam, mashallah. But of course, on YouTube, you could just go to a playlist. I try my best to be up to date in categorizing the classes according to playlists. And sometimes I forget, and it's not categorized into the playlist. But when I get around to it, I will begin to categorize things into playlists. So the thing about YouTube is that you record it first, and then after it's recorded, then you put it into the playlist. Right? And like Spreaker, because Spreaker is like you go straight into the folder. Mashallah. So anyway, we continue with our classes. Right. So the last time round, right, if you look at this document, right, the last time round, we were so we have gone through as I showed last week. Let's go back to the top part. Right, so last year I went through here, which was the muqaddimah, the introduction to this book. I so that those who are new to these classes, right, you are aware, right, what are these classes all about, right, and which is basically fardu ain, right, is fardu ain, which is what is essential on every person to acquire, and this fardu ain is specific unto women. Right? It's specific unto women. Naam. Right. So I think I showed this last week, right, of the introduction, and we went through the intricacies of the religion of Islam, Iman and Ihsan. And I spoke also in these classes about the fourth integral, right, which is knowledge of the end of times, right? And we spoke about that in the beginning, right? And then we went into depth about the two testimony, the two shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and we went into we went into depth. I went into depth of that, right? And then on purification, which was about the ghusl, about the compulsory bath, the major bath, and wudu. Right? So we went into all the different mas'ala, right? The different issues, the different um, the different issues, mashallah, right? And the conditions and the integrals and so on of purification, right? Whether it is the bath or whether it is wudu, right? So because purification goes under this too. And we spoke a bit about also about najasa, right? About najis as well. And then we spoke about menstruation at length, right? At length, and about menstruation, about postnatal bleeding, about discharge, the entire section all about discharge in the classes under chapter 2, right? So we went through that. I will be starting also a class the next week onwards, right? That is from a book Ibana Wali Fada, right? Which is basically a book that is specific in the entire book, right? Discusses the entire matter of menstruation and nifas and istihada and discharge and so on. Right? The whole book discusses that. Right. So next week I will begin it because it will start in February. Is it February next week? February next week. No, it's one more week to February. One more week to January. Yeah. So we'll start in February. Right. So maybe on the 4th. Right. So on the 4th we will start. Okay. On that book next it's on a Sunday. Sunday, I can't remember what time I put it. 2 or 3. Then chapter 3 on the prayer is conditions and integrals and methods connecting to it. And so we're here. Okay, so we're in chapter 3. Right, so even though it's 100 and something lessons that has gone past, right, but it's because I'm taking my time with this book. The book is in itself is a very small book. It's a kutayib, they call it a kutayib. It's a very small book, right? But I'm taking my time with regards to the book so as to be thorough, right, in our learning, right, of the fardu ain. As many of us we learned when we were young, and then we kind of you know went ahead with our life with whatever we learned when we were young, which could not be very accurate, right, in our understanding or even our memory, right, of what was taught to us, right? So it could be that someone continued their life having not no no basically someone continue their life, right, having not Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, right, having not understood something in this religion and something essential and something basic and essential in this religion, right? And then they continue in their life, and they keep doing that mistake over and over and over and over and over again, until they reach adulthood and they're still doing that mistake over and over and over and over again. And then it causes for their entire, the entire ibadah, right, their worship to be all nullified, right, because of something learned when they were young, right, and it was not learned correctly, and then it was carried on into their adulthood, and it was applied in that way. Subhanallah. Nah, so just to mention that. Okay, so we're going to continue into our onto the prayer. Right, so you can see that we went to Islam, went to the Shahada, and all of this is was we went through it, right? And then we went to the Shahada, it's all under Aqidah, right? Then establishing the prayer and all the pillars of the religion and the pillars of Iman, right? And we went through Ihsan, they went through wudu, the obligatory acts of wudu, the conditions, nullifiers, right, of wudu, and there are only 4 nullifiers of wudu, and no more than 4. Right? So and we went through that, and I emphasized over and over again what are the 4 nullifiers of wudu, so people stop confusing what nullifies wudu. Right? It is a what do you call it? It is a misunderstanding in our society, right? That touching najis nullifies wudu. Touching najis does not nullify wudu. Only 4 things nullify wudu. And we went through it in detail. And then methods that are impermissible for those in a minor state of hadas, it means those without wudu, what they can't do. And we went through especially the details, right, of touching the mushaf, right, and so on, with regards to this, right, and then about the way of doing wudu with a full sunnah, with the full sunnahs of performing wudu. How do you perform wudu with the full sunnahs in step by step? Uh, and we spoke about if you have continuous hadath, which is istihada or incontinence on, how you would do it, and how you make your intention, right, in such a situation, right? If you're on continuous bleeding, which is not menses, right, but it is istihada. And I would do this again if you were to attend the in February. I'll begin in February, making sense of menses. Right, so I will do it again also in our SPA again, inshallah. And I'm doing a class specific on this issue because of um too many questions that have come, and people are still people don't understand the method, right, of menstruation. So then after wudu, like, what do you say? And as soon as after wudu, right, and then what is makruh, right? What is makruh to do during wudu? We went to the compulsory bath, right? And with the compulsory bath, what makes it wajib? And again, this past week, I got a question about someone confusing basically when people read this and they see that, okay, after nifas, after you give birth, there is a compulsory bath, right? And after giving birth, right? And after giving birth, there is a compulsory bath, right? This giving birth is only for the one who does not get nifas, basically. Right? It's only for the person who does not get nifas, right? So if you got nifas, there's no need for you to take a bath. Right? So if someone gave birth, and there's no bleeding, then it becomes compulsory on that person to take a bath if they want to pray, right? But if you're getting nifas straight away after you give birth, there's no need for a bath, right? So I got the question again from last week, of someone worried that she never took a bath after giving birth to all her children. And I said to her, do you get nifas? And she said, yeah, I got nifas, but then didn't do the bath after giving birth. And I said to her, if you did a bath after giving birth, what are you going to do with that bath? You can't pray, you can't do anything because you have nifas, right? You can't do anything with the bath. There's no point taking a bath if you're having nifas. And in fact, it's not even wajib. Right, so just to be clear on that, in case someone were to go to see this and they're wondering what's with this, but right, but because there are people, let's say the Fatima Zahra, right, who give birth dryly, right? They give birth dryly, the baby comes out and there's no blood, right? So it's possible, right? It's possible. There's no blood. And she gets up and she bathes and she prays the very next prayer, mashallah. And I've heard of people who tell me that when they go through a cesarean, that the blood does not come out immediately, right? But it could come out after several hours, right? So in that several hours, if a prayer time comes in, right, you have to pray that prayer, right? So which means you gotta take the bath, right? And then pray that prayer, right? If there's a situation. Okay, so obligatory acts of bath. How do you take the bath? Then the conditions of the bath, the method of the bath is all with the full sunnahs, right? The full sunnahs of performing the compulsory bath, right? And then what is permissible for one to do in janaba, right? So in janaba, it is different. The laws of janaba and of junub, right? And the laws of menstruation, right? Because they are both major hadath, right? They are both major hadaths, but the laws are slightly different, right? Why? Right? Because in Naba, you have a choice of removing it. You could actually remove junub, right? If someone had sexual intercourse, right? If they had some form of ejaculation, they can actually remove the junub that's on them, right? It's easy to be to remove it, just take a bath. Right? However, with menstruation and nifas, you don't have a choice but to wait it out. Right? You can't just decide to remove it. Right? But you have to wait until you actually clean, right? And then you could remove the hadas, the major hadas. That is why the laws are slightly different, right? So for head and nifas, is different. Okay, then we went through all of this. I'm just running through for the benefit of those who are new, so you know what you have, like what you have to catch up on, right, if you have not gone through this before. Right now, with regards to menstruation, right? So we went into detail of menstruation, and then about the minimum menses, the average length, and the maximum menses. And just be very, very clear, right? Minimum 24 hours and 24 hours of flow put together, all together, right? So especially like I think I got this question I think 2 weeks ago. Someone asked me this question. She said that and this is again a confusion on the on the condition, right, of a 24-hour flow. She said that she saw spotting, right? And spotting is menses, right? Spotting and blood, they fall under the same ruling, right? If you see brown spotting, like brown stains on your panty liner, and you think the first thing you think of is how long ago was my previous menses? And when did it end? If it ended more than 15 days ago by the hour, I mean, it's 15 times 24 hours. It's specific. It's very specific. It has to be that, like when they say 15 days ago, we don't go by 12 midnight, right? But we go by the hour. So if it ended at 6 p.m., right, on a Sunday, right, so you count, right, 24 times 15 hours after that to a 6 p.m. 2 weeks later, but on a Monday, because 15 days, right? So you go one more day. If you can count in that, when you went through it, you went through now. So the first, so if you see spotting, first question is, did my menses, has it been 15 days of prayer, right? By the hour, has it been 15 days of prayer? If the answer is yes, then you stop praying the moment you see the color. Right? The moment you see a brownish spotting or brownish, the talwith, like spotting is menses. Right? You see it brownish, or you see, dirty yellow and whatever, you stop praying straight away because your menses is coming. Right. So her question was, she saw some brown spotting, then it stopped. And it stopped for more than 24 hours. It stopped. There was nothing else thereafter. So I asked her, is this your usual menstrual time? Right? Is this your usual menstrual time? And she said, yes, right, it is. She's expecting her menses to come. Then I asked her, are you married? Because I have to know if this could be a pregnancy. Is this if this could be that she's pregnant, because it's possible that if you get pregnant in the first month, it's possible that you get spotting, right? And you have to know if this is istihada because of pregnancy, right? Or if it's really menses on its way, right? So if she says, oh, she's not married, okay, like that, there's no possibility of her being pregnant, right? There should not be a possibility of her being pregnant because she's not married, right? So then I'll say, okay, then you just wait it out. I just wait. Don't pray. I don't pray. And she said, but 24 hours and no bleeding, nothing. And I said, do you feel crampy? Do you feel the indications of menses? Do you feel the signs of menses? And she was like, yeah, she feels it, right? She feels the crampiness, she feels the uneasiness and so on. And I said, that it's coming, it's on its way. Right? It's on its way. And true enough, the following day, the blood came. Right. And this is something that is common, especially as you get older. Your womb begins to not be as versatile, or as you say, elastic, or as strong. The muscles in the womb, right? It's not as strong as how you were when you were a teenager, right? It's different, right? So as teenagers or young women, usually, right, their menstruation will come, like in one go, all the blood will come start flowing out, right? But older women, especially if you not even older, like when you hit the age of 30, you go beyond 30, you come into an older age, your womb gets weakened because it keeps menstruating every month. So the muscle cramps up every month. So the muscle gets weakened and stretched, right? Especially if you've had children, right? Your womb has stretched, right? It has weakened. And that is what causes all this spotting, right, to occur, because the womb, sheds the bits of blood before it begins to shed the full thing. Right. So it's just the way our body is, right? So you get older, right? And then so your womb begins to do things, right? And it's not your norm. It's not my norm. Yeah, but you're getting older. So you're having a new norm. You're having a new, new womb. Or old womb lah, old womb. Right. But don't be surprised as you get older, your menstruation begins to really go all over the place and be different, right, as compared to your younger days and when you were a teenager, right? So mashallah, if a person was pregnant, right, so if I asked her, if she had said, oh, I'm married, then I say, is there a possibility of you being pregnant this month? And she said, possibility. It's a possibility of her being pregnant, right? And I said that I would say to her, right? So yes, 24 hours has passed. So I would say to her, do a pregnancy test. Basically, test if you're pregnant. Right? If you test that you are positive and you're pregnant, okay. Then qada. I do a qada of the prayers that you have missed because this is not menses, but it is istihada. It's istihada in pregnancy. Right, I'll say that to her. Right, so they just do a qada. Must she bathe? The answer is no. She never went into hadath in the first place. Right, she never went into hadath in the first place. To go into hadass, you must have had menses. She never had menses, but it was spotting because she was pregnant, right? But if the test comes out negative, showing she's not pregnant, and the test could be wrong, you would say that because sometimes it shows later, right? I would say, don't wait it out, right? Wait to see if the menses comes. If the menses does not come after another day of waiting it out, right, then do a qada of the prayers, then there's a possibility that there is a pregnancy. Right? This also happens for a woman going on menopause. Right? So when women come into menopause, that they do have, as they end their life in menses, right, as they come to an end with regards to the cycle, um, it could come that they have spotting, right? But the spotting never leads to a full blood flow. It never leads to a full blood flow, right? So if they see the brownish discharge, right, they stop praying. And whenever you see brownish or dirty yellow or whatever, you stop praying. They stop praying, right? They see the discharge, you stop praying. And if the blood does not come out, right, and the whole thing goes away, it becomes white again, then just do a qada, right? So a qada of whatever, do a makeup of whatever prayers that you have missed. Right? This one. When I'm going on, so all we've gone through it, and we went through the last time round. I mean, I think some time ago, I with nifas and so on, we went through nifas. The minimum clean period between two haids to menstrual cycle, and between nifas and the haid, it's all very important. And if someone here just got married, or you're having your first child, you are pregnant, your first child, please, 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 record down your nifas. Record meaning what? Record the color of the blood, the flow of the blood. Whether it's heavy, whether it's light, what are the colors? Please record your nifas. In case your nifas is it goes beyond 60 days. Right. So then if you come to me to ask for the ruling, I will have to ask you but I have to ask you for your records. You must give me your records. Right. So if you have no records, then it'll be very difficult for me to help you. Right. And might have to give you a ruling, right, that will be very difficult on you. Right. So I give some case studies, right, of some case studies, right, of people and their menstruation. All of this I'll go through again, inshallah, in the course Making Sense of Menses. Right? I'll go through it again with more case studies. Right. So people that woman out there, right, they feel confident in giving a hukum, right? So the whole intention of this coming course, Making Sense of Menses, right, is really to have women be confident in their knowledge that they can give a ruling on what blood they see, or when someone comes to them and tells them their issue with their bleeding and so on, right, that they will be confident to tell them what's the hukum. Right, what is this? Is this menses? Is this istihada? Is this nifas? And then what about your discharge and everything? Right, that's the whole point. You want that woman be confident, that they can say to someone what is the ruling without feeling, oh, I'm not so sure, I don't know, be confident, mashallah. It went through istihada, and went through quite a bit of situation. And situations about istihada, went through all of this. Why it's impermissible for those on haid and nifas, which you mentioned, that was a bit different, right? A bit different from those in janaba. There's a bit more, right, of what is impermissible. Okay, in addition, right? So fasting is not permissible, right? Walking through the masjid, if you feel dirtying it, it's not permissible. Sickness, sexual pleasure is not permissible, right, on someone, uh, um, on haid or nifas. Then we went into the mas'ala or the situation of طرح المانع وإزالة المانع, which means basically when menses comes, right? Uh, right, right. So when menses comes, right, and then and when menses ends, okay. I went through all of it. We went through all of it. Now, okay, then we went into the chapter of prayer. So we're here now in chapter 3 of prayer, right? And whatever is connected to it. So we spoke about the prayer. We spoke about the importance of the prayer. We spoke about prayer timings, right? All of the prayer timings. And we spoke about, I put in, I usually do this, right? In all of the books that we go through, the fiqh books that we go through, I usually have a section that is specific for a traveler. Because we are people who travel a lot. Like Singaporeans, we tend to travel a lot, right? And it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't know the laws of travel. Right? So it's something that I usually would put in into the classes, even if it's not found in the book, right? Because the books, like a lot of the Fardu Ain books, it, a lot of Fardu Ain books or the essential books, a lot of them they were written some time ago, and usually on societies whereby people are poor. And so poor people don't travel so much, right? Traveling is the luxury of the rich. Right? So Singaporeans, we travel a lot, right? Because we have that luxury, of being able to travel. Because traveling takes up a lot of money, right, to go and travel. Right? So especially the Haramia, the book that we're going through, for women, the women in the society in Hadramaut, right, they rarely travel. Right? They rarely travel. Right. So it was not put in the book because he was trying to keep it as relevant as possible to the people who will learn this book. Right. So traditionally people don't travel so much, especially women. So he didn't put it in, but I put it in because of how it relates to us in Singapore. As I went through some of the laws of travel, right, of Jama' Ta'khir, and Qasar, right? And now they went through all of these things. Okay, and things that are connected to the prayers, the conditions, the integrals, the main sunnahs that require or is sunnah to do sujood sahwi, and then extra recommended acts. We did that as well. And now we're actually here, nullifiers. That's where we're at. Okay, the nullifies. What nullifies? Or in the bat'ala, like what nullifies our prayer. I guess we went through all the conditions. We went through the integrals. We went through all the integrals, all in detail. It's all in detail. We went through it. So even if you listen to the recording, if you have any questions, you can post it. You can. I'm not sure. Is the group open? I'm not sure if it's open. You can post it on the group if it's open for people to post, or you can just text me directly, which many people do. Just text me directly, and I will inshallah answer your question. Usually, usually some of my friends say that if you want me to respond to you, ask a tricky question, and I'll respond to you. If you text me random stuff, I probably won't respond to you. But yeah, you want a response from me? Ask me a tricky question, right? And I will give you a response. That's how you get me to interact, right? But mashallah, no mashallah. Okay, so we're here, right? We're here. Nullifiers of the prayer. Okay, Bismillah. Let me see. Some people are asking questions. Um, let's see. So the first someone asked here, if one day brown, one day stop, next 2 days no spotting, should I shower? So again, ask yourself the question, has there been 15 days since your previous menses? First question, right? And then has there been 15 days since your previous menses? If the answer is yes, right, there has been 15 days since your previous menses, right? Then you take it as menses, wait for the menses to come. If and I went through the different masala, right? Right? Do you think you are pregnant? Like, is there a possibility of being pregnant? If no possibility, then chances of marriage will come. If there is a possibility, then you can just you don't have to bathe, right? Because the spotting is not given the hukum of menses, right? Because it was less than 24 hours, correct? So it was not given the hukum of menses. So which means you were never in hadas in the first place. So there's no need to shower. You know, when you do the bath, right? It has to have happened that you went into a major hadath, hadath besar. You must have gone into a major hadath, right? If you give the ruling of your spotting to be not menses, right, but it was istihada, for example, then you never entered into major hadath. Think about it, right? You never actually entered into major hadath. There's no need to shower. Do you understand? I hope you understand. Right? So people always confuse like should I shower, should I not? If you are giving the ruling onto yourself that that was not menses, that means you never went into major hadas like that in the first place, right? Just qada. Just qada, right? Qada what you um like qada what you did qada what you miss, qada what you miss. If you see a message was clear to come in 8 to 10 days, so just I need to know that have you had 15 days or between from the previous menses to this menses, or is this brown connected to the previous menses? Right? Was it within the 15 days of the previous menses? So all you have to go through the classes and you'll be able to figure it out. Right. Inshallah. If you still can't figure it out, then you text me directly and I will help you out. Okay. I'm going to see if I can do this when people ask questions. Or if it's really 15 days, was it connected to the previous menses? Is it connected, meaning that was it what do you say? Was it that the previous menses you're within the 15 days of the previous menses, and then it could be from the previous bleeding that there is a remnants. Right, so anyway, and then also I would mention that if you come for these classes, I would appreciate that you ask your questions publicly. You can change your name. You can put like some sort of alias or something if you're too shy, but ask publicly, right? So that other people can benefit from your question. Because otherwise, I'm the only one who sees your question. Right. So if you're asking questions, like ask it publicly, right? So that everyone see the question. So that I can people can benefit. So anyway, this is a question that was sent to me directly. Someone had intercourse, have not bathed janaba. A few hours later, period came. Must the person bathe janaba immediately? No, because you're on your period, right? You're on your period. So what is the point of your janaba bath, right? There's no point. You're on your period because in your period, even more things are not allowed as compared to janaba, right? Yeah. So it's regardless. It's regardless. Whether you have done your janaba bath, not done your janaba bath, so you could do your normal surahs before sleep. You could do your normal surahs before sleep, even in your period. Like, even in your period, you could do your normal surahs before sleep, right? So I'll give the example, like when you for wudu, right? If you were to, for example, touch your husband, you break your wudu, right? And then you let out gas, you break your wudu. You go to the bathroom and you basically you defecate or urinate, you break your wudu, you break your wudu. So now you have broken your wudu in several ways, correct? Like all in one go, you broke your wudu in several ways. Do we say you take 4 wudus to remove the hadath? Of course not, right? You say no, do one wudu is enough, right? And it will cover up all the hadas. So on that note, right, the minor with regards to minor hadas, it's obvious to us. If you do several things, that will cause a minor hadas, all you have to do is one wudu. Right? Same thing with major hadath. If several things happen to you to put you into a major hadath, it's just one bath, right? To bring you out of the major hadath. Correct. Right. So you had intercourse, and then after the menses came, continue in your major hadath until you have no choice anyway, until your menses stops. Right. Then you take your bath. So it's regardless. So you don't have to do it. Taking a bath while you're on your menses does nothing. It does nothing on your state. Mashallah. Okay, I hope that's understood. And they even give issues whereby, like, what if a person, right, is pregnant, right? So she's pregnant, right? And then she had intercourse with her husband, right? And then after intercourse, she began to menstruate. It's possible to menstruate in pregnancy, and there's a specific way of knowing if you are menstruating in pregnancy, right? And it's a healthy pregnancy. There are women who menstruate regularly while being pregnant. Right? So maybe this woman, after she had intercourse, she got her menstruation. Then maybe after her menstruation, right? Immediately after the menstruation, she went into labor, right? Labor, and she gave birth, and she went into nifas, right? Right. So now you see, oh, what's on her? She had janaba, she had intercourse, then she had her menstruation, then she had childbirth, then she had nifas. It's like four things going on with this person. How many baths does she take? One, one bath, right? One bath, right? And he removes all the hadas. Tamam. Okay, I hope that's clear. Um, okay, if someone, uh, tamam. Um, okay, okay, you're not in Janaba, but you're counted to be in period, okay? Yeah, you're counted to be in period. Right, so you can read your normal wirid, right? So if you have a habit of doing the three calls before you sleep, if you have a habit of reading Surah Muluk, Surah Waqi'ah before you sleep, you can go ahead. You can go ahead. Right. So you're not counted to be in Janaba, but you're counted to be right now in menses. You're in menses. Okay, another question. The length of your pregnancy, does it after a miscarriage affect whether or not it is nifas? Yes, it does. Right. And whether or not you have to bathe the major bath? Yes. Right. So the scholars say that the pregnancy must be a minimum of 2 months, right? 2 months of pregnancy, right? So, and the pregnancy is counted not from your previous menses, but it is counted right from like when you suspect that when you suspect there was a fertilization, basically when the pregnancy began physically, right? So 2 months of pregnancy. So you say two missed menses, like if you want to go in that way, right? Two missed menses. So if you have had 2 months of pregnancy, right, and then there was a miscarriage, that blood is counted as nifas, right? Nifas. If you had less than 2 months of pregnancy and there was a miscarriage, if you can identify that what came out of you, right, there was a clot that can be identified as human, right? Because it's a miscarriage, right? So if the clot that came out of you can be identified by someone of experience that this is a human being. This asluhu adami. This is a human being that came out of you. Then the hukum of the blood is nifas. But if you can't identify, because prior to 2 months, it's almost impossible to tell if the clot was actually a human being or if it was a false pregnancy, because it's possible that people get false pregnancies. And false pregnancies, there's no human being in there, but the body begins to produce a placenta, but there's no human being. And this is a false pregnancy. So basically, the body will throw it out before 2 months. When the body detects that there's no human being there, so the body will throw it out. So the person, even though she tests herself, using all the pregnancy tests, she will test positive. She will actually test positive because the body is producing hormones and the body is thinking that it is pregnant. The body thinks it's pregnant. But when the body realizes that there's no human being there that's growing, the body realizes that it's actually a false pregnancy, which can happen to a woman. and the body will just discard, right, what it had produced of the placenta. So some women think that they went through a miscarriage, but there was actually no human being there to begin with. And it was actually not a miscarriage. This happens quite often, actually, amongst women, right? So usually, and the scholars have identified in Islam, right, that this will happen before 2 months. If your body detects that there's no fetus inside of you, it will throw out what it produced within 2 months. MashaAllah, right? So this is just why we don't give the ruling of nifas for someone who said, oh, but I tested positive. Yes, you can test positive and not be pregnant. It's possible. And even for someone going through menopause, right? When you go through menopause, you can very well test positive, for pregnancy. You're not pregnant, don't panic. You're like, I'm 45, I'm 50, and I'm pregnant. Don't panic, don't panic. It's normal. Going through menopause, you can actually test positive and you're not pregnant. Then you panic, you're like, I'm pregnant. Oh no. Mashallah. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Mashallah. Right, but it's possible. Right. So beyond 2 months, and usually beyond 2 months, you can see the fetus. You can kind of like detect that there was a human being there. Right? Prior to 2 months, usually is mustahil. It's almost impossible to detect there was actually a human being in there. Right? So if there was a miscarriage before 2 months, then the ruling of that blood is menses. The ruling of blood is menses. And the main difference between menses and nifas is the length of time you can stay not praying. Right? So for nifas, you're given up to 60 days not praying. But for menstruation, you have a maximum of 15 days. Right? So it's important to give the blood the correct ruling. Is this blood menstruation or nifas? Right? In that way. Okay. Okay, mashallah. Now I make a lot of questions on menstruation. This I'm going through it in February. So come for that class. Like today we're supposed to do our nullifiers of the prayer. Okay, I'll just answer all the questions first, like because so many questions here. After you sleep with your husband, a lot of discharge comes out. So even after Janaba bath, the next day you feel lots of discharge coming out. Is that the leftover money from the husband that comes out? And do I need to do another Janaba bath? Okay, Janaba bath is only when okay, okay for Junub, right? Right, it is in two situations. Three, Afwan. The two situations. The first situation is penetration, right? So which means a male private organ enters the head of it enters the female private organ, right? Even if there is no ejaculation, right? The moment it enters, junub, right? There is janaba, is junub. That's one way. Okay. The other way of janaba is if a person, right, a human being, male or female, ejaculates money. Right? So money can be male, can be female. Eh? Male, females also have we have also our money that comes with it usually comes with an orgasm. Right? So there's a sexual high whereby the money is ejaculated. Okay, that brings you to janaba. Okay, when this happens, you go into janaba. So when your husband's money goes into you and comes out of you, you do not ejaculate it. You're not ejaculating. It's just coming out. It's not yours. It's not yours, right? Anyway, a woman's money is very, very small amount. Not a large amount like a man's, right? So in high chances, if it's still flowing out of you even after a day, after all these hours, because whatever came to you from your husband should come out within a few hours. It should come out within a few hours, right? So if like a lot of this, discharge coming out, is your body reacting? As your body is producing all this discharge to clean out. So it's from you. It's your own discharge, right? High chances it's from you. Right? It's not his, right? His should have come out of you within a few hours of intercourse, right? And anyway, his coming out of you does not put you into janaba because it's not your money. It's his money. So you never actually ejaculated anything. You get what I'm saying? Eh? So just like you go by principle. If you understand the principle, and what makes someone go into janaba? Penetration, ejaculation, right? Did any of these things happen? No. Didn't happen. It happened, when you were having intercourse, yes, you took a bath, but after your bath, did any of these two things happen? Did you go into a sexual high? No. You said, no, I didn't go into any sexual high. There was no orgasm, there was no ejaculation, okay. There was no penetration, okay. Then there's no janaba. There's no janaba, right? But it's najis. What it is najis. Najis, which means that you must istinja and your wudu is nullified. The wudu is nullified, so you just have to do your wudu again. That's all. Tama? Okay. Can you teach your children just amma one major hadath? Yeah. Teaching the Quran, you can teach the Quran. Just don't touch the mushaf, right? Don't touch the mushaf. Tama? Um, you can find other ways of other there are a lot of books out there that you can use, right? But you can touch a mushaf. Right. Now, in a state of, I will ask, I will request again, can people please ask your questions publicly so people can see the questions, so I don't have to keep reading it out, right? So can people ask your questions publicly? You can change your name if you're too shy. Just go to your name and just like put something, put a smiley face or something, right? If you're too shy, no one can tell it's you, right? But please ask your questions publicly so people can benefit. Right. So you can read your surahs that is part of your norm. Right. So your habitual surahs can be recited while you are in your period. Yes. Yes. As for janaba without period, janaba without period, no, because you can remove the janaba, right? Without period. But janaba going into period, now you are on a big, you're on period. You don't say janaba anymore. You say period, right? So the janaba is now like, irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Now the ruling on you is period. And you're on your period. Yes, you can read your habitual surahs, like if you have a habit of reading. As I mentioned, Surah Falaq, Surah Nas, Surah Ikhlas, you can do du'as from the Quran, yes, you can. If it's habitual, and before you sleep, reading Ayatul Kursi is habitual, you can do it, even through your menses. If there is yellow or white discharge leak on during your prayers, is your prayers valid? Okay, you need to go back to the lesson on discharge. I went through an entire lesson on discharge. It depends on your discharge, whether your discharge is najis or non-najis. You must go back to that lesson on that, right? So if it's yellow discharge, definitely it is najis and nullifies your wudu, therefore your prayer is invalid, right? If it's yellow discharge. If it's white discharge, if it's a small amount, it's clumpy, not a large amount, but small amount, then that's not najis, that's not nullify your prayer. Your prayer is fine. So nullify your wudu afan, then your prayer is fine. But if it's a large amount of colorless discharge, then it is najis and nullifies your prayer. But go back to the lesson whereby I explained this in detail about discharge, or come for the lessons in February whereby I will go through it in detail. Okay, good question here. Do I intend ihram if I enter Mecca on my menses as a possibility menses will end before I leave Mecca? Can I intend ihram on the airplane? I would advise you not to, right? Because you don't know if really your menstruation will end before you leave Mecca. You don't know, right? So I would advise you not to, right? But just enter into Mecca, then with no intention, right? Because you don't know if your menstruation is going to end. And then if your menstruation end, you can just always go out to Tana'im and do your ihram, right? Because there was no intention of doing umrah, because you don't know about your menses ending. Okay, so I would advise you not to make your intention. Um, so many questions, mashallah. There's one question here. If touching the private part of the spouse did not lead to any penetration, is it intercourse? No, it's not intercourse. Intercourse is specifically the private part of the male entering the female, specifically, right? But if you're just touching, or fondling or whatsoever, there's no major hadas unless you ejaculated. This was an again, two things brings you into janaba: penetration or ejaculation. right? So if there's an ejaculation, then of course you're in junub lah, right? But if you're just touching and there's no ejaculation, then no junub, right? Then you just basically minor hadas, okay? If you hit a fly or mosquito while you have wudu, do you have to take a wudu again? You must go back to the lesson on the four things that nullify wudu, and killing an animal does not nullify your wudu. Go back to the lesson on the four things that nullify your wudu, okay? There are only four things that nullifies your wudu. The first thing, touching the privates of a human being, whether it's yours or somebody else. Second thing, something exiting from your privates, right? Like air or feces or urine or discharge, right? And we went into that. Third thing, losing consciousness, which is like sleeping. When you sleep lying down, right? You lose your wudu. Fourth thing, to touch the skin of someone who is not mahram to you, right? That is don't nullify your wudu. It means the skin of your husband or a man that's not mahram to you. Only four things nullify your wudu. Okay. So killing a mosquito or a fly doesn't do anything to your wudu, but there's najis on your hands, so just wash it off. But it does nothing to your wudu. It doesn't affect your wudu at all. Okay, the ruling of touching material made from pig skin, it falls under cell 2. Right? It falls under cell 2. Right? You will have to, if there is moisture, right, then you'll have to wash with 1 time soil and 6 times water. Right? If there's moisture on your hand or on the material. But if it's dry, right, then the najasa did not come onto your hands if it's dry. Okay, discharge due to bacteria, it would nullify your wudu, yes. It would nullify your wudu. Right. So nullify your wudu, that means your prayer is invalid lah. But if you have continuous discharge without stop, then you fall under someone on continuous hadas, like someone on istihadah. Then the rulings of that will apply onto you. Okay. Okay, this question, let's see. Someone farted on my pillow and I touched it. Will it nullify my wudu? Okay, again, four things nullify your wudu. Does this fall under any of the four? Right? Did you touch anyone's private part or your private part? No. Did anything come out of your own private part? You know, like the gas or urine or feces or discharge? No. Did you lose consciousness? You being son or what? But did you lose consciousness when someone farted? No. Do you touch a non-mahram? You know, with the skin to skin touch a non-mahram? Answer no. Right? You got your wudu lah. Your wudu is there with you. MashaAllah. Okay. MashaAllah. Okay. Okay. The other question about going to Malaysia, you can text me directly, like, because it's not fiqh, then it's under something else, under marriage. Like right now we're under fiqh, right? So you can text me directly, um um vaginal queefs. Okay, vaginal queefs, basically this would be gas from the vagina. Okay, gas from the vagina, they are of two types. Okay, I'm not going to say it's two types, even though it's only one type, but the other one people always confuse them. Okay, so from your vagina, right, there are two types of possible gases. One type, which a lot of women experience, right, is basically like it feels like bubbles coming out of your vagina. Right, so this is all okay. Alhamdulillah, we're doing revision of what we have done because we went through it as well. All of this we went through it. So I really recommend that if you are new, please go back to the classes and revise and hear it again. But I will answer the questions as well. So it will be revision on those who are here who've been following these classes for quite some time. So it's revision for you all also lah. You should be able to answer the questions, eh? Those who have learned who have been studying with me for the past 2 years, you should be able to answer all these questions if you have been revising. So basically, if you the first step of gas from the vagina, right, comes in the form of bubbles, right? So you will hear like that kind of thing, like you hear what I just did louder. Right, so you kind of feel like there are bubbles, coming out of your vagina, this is not really gas. It's just basically there's moisture around your vagina, and because of your movement of ruku and sujud, and you move up and down, right? Right, or you walk around, you you know the air from the outside environment gets trapped in the moisture, especially the discharge. It gets trapped in the moisture. Then as you move, it gets released, right? That is nothing. It is nothing. Don't worry about it. And don't worry about it. Does not nullify your wudu. It does nothing. That does nothing. So don't worry about it, right? Because it just basically air from the external environment being trapped in the moisture of the you call it the lips of the vagina. Right? It's the lips of the vagina. It gets trapped, right? In there, and as you move, it gets released, right? There's nothing. Right? There's nothing there. So and don't give it any attention because it's a door to waswasa. It's a door whereby shaitan plays with you and it makes you like so paranoid. But while you are praying, especially, right, you're thinking, what was that? Then I nullify my wudu. What was that? What was that sound? What was not sound? What was that feeling? That sensation? I don't know what is that. Then he'll make you paranoid. Like he make you so paranoid, shaitan, because he will be playing with you. That's one thing. The other one, right, is really air from the womb, right? And that's really like what you call like a vaginal queef, right? That's really air from the womb. So air that is stuck in the womb, in the pockets in the womb, right, coming out through the vagina. This very few women actually experience. Very few women actually experience this on a regular basis, especially, right? This usually happens to someone who just gave birth, right? Or to someone who has had multiple births. Right? So they have given birth several times to the point the womb is so stretched and having many, many folds in the womb that there could be gas trapped right in the womb. So this kind of gas comes out of your vagina in a whoosh like that. It comes out like a wind, like a whoosh, right? So it's very distinct, very distinct. I've never experienced it before in my life. And so don't confuse the bubbles, right? That's just there coming out, right? With this, this whoosh, of the wind from the vagina. And don't confuse that. So the one that comes up as a wind, that's the one whereby it nullifies your wudu. Yes, it nullifies your wudu, right? Correct. Okay, so gas exiting the uterus nullifies wudu. Correct. It does. Right, but you need to differentiate between the one that is bubbles and the one that is like a gas coming out. You must be able to differentiate. All right. So if discharge came out, if you're not sure if it came out, then the gas it didn't come out, right? If you don't know when your discharge came out, right? Then your yakin is, or your certainty is, there was no discharge, right? But if you want to pray again, up to you. Right? You can take a like a safe position. Okay. Okay. The person is asking about the liners and all that stuff, right? Your question on lines and stuff like that. You need to go through the lesson on discharge because I have a feeling that you're not differentiating between discharge that is najis and is wudu and discharge that is not najis and does not nullify wudu. So I have a feeling that you are confusing the two. You're not differentiating between the two. So you need to go through the lesson that is on that, right, on discharge and nullifying and the types of discharge. The other types of discharge, right? You need to go through the lesson to be able to differentiate, right? So because it's not that hard, right? You don't have to always check. You don't have to always change your panty liner. It's not that. It's only some parts in your cycle whereby you have more najis discharge, right? So it's not that much of every point in your life you can't even keep wudu. No, women can keep wudu. Right? Otherwise, how are you gonna go to your Umrah, right? Do your Umrah, do your Hajj, go to the Kaaba, like if you're gonna take wudu every single waqtu or every single prayer time, like subhanallah. Okay, okay, question here. If husband and wife had intercourse, um, and they slept, they woke up right before Fajr was about to end. Right? Must they bathe first or pray first? You can't pray in your major hadas. You cannot. You need to bathe because your prayers are counted anyway. If you pray in major hadas, the prayers are counted. You cannot pray. You cannot pray in major hadas. Right? You must bathe. You must bathe. Right? So you missed your fajr, you do your qada, yes, you do a qada. So you bathe, take your wudu, you bathe, and then you pray and you pray it outside all the time, then you istighfar and taubat. Don't do that ever again. Istighfar and taubat. Right? Don't do that ever again. Um, I took wudu to pray Zohor, did Asar, same wudu right after the Asar prayer, the rest days, discharge on the liner. Again, check to see if this discharge is it najis or not. There are two types of discharge. I'll be clear. There are two types of discharge. Okay. Mm. If you didn't feel anything coming out while you were praying Asar, then you can take the ruling that it came out after that, right? You can take the ruling up to you. But learn the chapter on discharge, okay? Okay. Okay, I'm gonna continue from here. Bismillah. Last question here. Um, okay. So the question here is a pale yellow stain with light green tiny clump. Uh, in my case, my church is yellow, not really yellow. Not really yellow, so what did I call it? Okay, tamam. Okay, I think all of these questions, right, you must come for for the class on menstruation. I will go through it. But basically, yellow discharge, there are two types also. There is yellow discharge that is discharged, and yellow discharge that is actually bled, right? So the yellow discharge that is actually bled, that's the one that is menstruation. And the yellow discharge that is actually discharged, that is discharge. And how do you tell? It is by the texture, right? So yellow discharge that is blood, it has the texture of blood, meaning that it smears over your liner. It is smearing, right? Yellow discharge that is discharged, it comes in clumps. It's clumps, or there's like a it feels like you would say mucus. It feels like mucus. Right? That's discharge. Okay. So if that comes, that's your discharge, your normal discharge. But if the one that you feel is like a smear, like it's like blood texture, then there's blood lah. It falls under menses. I will go through as well, and then inshallah give the examples. Right. But you need to feel it, right? I hope everyone knows the texture of discharge. When you feel discharge, when you do your istinja, right, and you pull out a discharge, you can feel it. It feels like mucus. It does feel like mucus, the same texture as mucus. Blood does not have that texture. Mucus discharge has the texture of mucus, or like you say, this kind of glue that is wet, this kind of wet glue, and then the fluid glue. It feels like that, or it feels like egg white, that kind of texture, egg white texture. If you have that, that's discharge. That's not blood, right? So it's not the remnants of menses, right? But if let's say towards the end of your menses, and for me, I get this, right? Towards the end of my menses, I will get my blood turns yellow. It's yellow blood. It's actually yellow blood. It's not discharge. It's yellow blood. My blood turns yellow, right? So I can see that it will smear on my line, right? And I can see that there's no like it's not the texture of discharge. It's not like mucus, but it's blood lah. It's yellow blood. Blood can be yellow, eh? Right? And even our own body blood can be yellow, eh? Like there is something as the it's called the plasma. And the plasma of blood is yellow. That's what you're looking at. Right? Is a plasma of blood. I'm just going to take some barakah in doing continue our book. Inshallah. So nullifiers of the prayer. That's when you read from the text. We actually do two books for this class, but and then if I have time lah. So we don't have time, we just do one book. Um, we have عادة السباق إلى مكارم الأخلاق, right, which is the quest for virtuous character, right? But I don't think we have time for that today. Inshallah, next week we have time for that. So we are at the مبدلات الصلاة. تمام. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الأمور التي قال المؤلف رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله به وبعرف دار من كتاب تزكية الحضرمية فيما يجب على النساء من الأمور الدينية، تأليف العلامة السيد محمد بن سالم بن حفيظ العالمي الحسيني الحضرمي الشافعي. From the book The Hadrami Reminder, or Essential Reminders on what is compulsory on every woman to know in matters of religion, by the great scholar Sayyid Muhammad bin Salim bin Hafiz al-Alawi al-Husayni al-Hadrami al-Shafi'i. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be us by him and by his knowledge in both. He's the father of Habib Umar, where he has said, الأمور التي الأمور التي تبطل الصلاة بوجود واحد منها أربعة أشياء. Right, so he says the matters that nullify the prayer simply by the existence of any one of them, right? They are 14. There are 14 matters. So you know how we say wudu, only 4 matters nullify wudu. Okay, as for salat, 15 or 14, 14 matters nullify salat. 14 matters. Okay, so the first one al-awwal al-hadith. سواء كان حدثا أصغر أو حدثا أكبر. Right, حدث, which means a state of impurity, regardless of it being minor or major states of impurity. That's the answer to the question just now when someone asked if I am on junub because of intercourse, right, and I wake up, it's almost the end of Fajr, do I pray first or do I bathe first? The answer is bathe, because you can't pray in your major impurity, right? There's no prayer, right, to begin with if you pray in your major impurity. There's no choice but to bathe. You must bathe. And you can only pray when you can only pray, right, when you are clean, right, of any form of hadas, right, impurities. Right. So I put hadas, right, whereas hadas, why is hadas? It's all revision, right? Minor, passing wind, touching a non-mahram, right? Non-mahram. Be clear that your husband is a non-mahram, mahram means someone you can't marry. That's the meaning of mahram. Someone you can't marry, right? So your father, your brother, your uncle, your grandfather, right? Your nephew, your son. These are men you can't marry, right? As for your husband, you married him, so he's definitely not your mahram. Right? You actually married him, right? That's the definition now. Right? That's just why touching your husband breaks your wudu. Right? But because you married him, you are halal for him. So he can see of your body and he can, take pleasure from you because you are halal, right, for him. And you're not halal to your non-mahrams. There's no halal for the non-mahram. They can see part of your aura, yes, right, but they can't come near you in the way your husband can. Right? So don't confuse husband and the non-mahram. The non-mahram are family, right? Husband is husband. This is on a different. It's a different ruling with regards to the husband. Losing consciousness, for example, sleep. Right, sleep lying down. So there's a way of sleeping seated that does not cause for your wudu to be lost. Right, gas exiting from the uterus. Right, we spoke about that, from the uterus, and also not bubbles, but proper gas coming out, proper gas, like a wind coming out. Right, najis discharge, and I put the word najis there. It has to be najis discharge. There's 2 types of discharge. So learn the chapter of discharge. And I will go through it in the making sense of menses. If you don't want to go back on my lessons here, you can go for the Sunday class, making sense of menses, right? Flowing out, right, and so on and so forth. What causes minor hadas. Okay, right. Now I put these things here because these things can happen to you while you are praying. So I didn't put in defecation, urination, and so on, because these things chances or touching someone's privates, you would not do it while you are praying, right? While you are praying. So these are things that can happen while you are praying. Passing wind can happen. Touching a non-mahram can happen while you are praying. It happened to me when I was praying behind my husband. I think it was a small room. And when I sujood, my hand was on the ground. And then when he got up, his foot hit my hand. Right? His foot, he stepped on my hand lah, basically when he got up. So both of us wudu batal. Both of us our wudu were nullified, right? Because I prayed too close to him. Right? So then nullified in the prayer. Right. Sleep. There are people who sleep in prayer. Right. So if you're standing and then you fell asleep, or you're in sujood, you fell asleep, or you are in your atahiyya and you fell asleep, like sleep nullifies your prayer, right? Because sleep nullifies your wudu. Mhm. Right. Gas from the uterus possible to come when you're praying. And then najis discharge. Right? So be very specific. Najis discharge that came out while you're praying nullifies your prayer. However, if you're not so sure if the discharge is najis or not, I would say continue your prayer, then check it on to see if it's najis or not. Just continue your prayer and then check it on, right, to see if it's najis or not. Okay. Whereas for major hadath, they could possibly happen in your prayer, right? Is menses, right? I mean, it's impossible for there to be penetration during your prayer, of course. Can't be nifas, right? Because you are praying, you didn't give birth, right? The blood before birth is not nifas. The blood before birth is istihada. Okay, it's not nifas. Nifas is only when the womb is emptied out of any human form. That is nifas. So only after the womb is emptied out of any human form. So if someone has multiple babies in the womb, like 2 or 3, right, babies in the womb, only after all of them have come out, right, then the blood is nifas. So all the bloods in between, they're all not nifas. Right? All the blood before that is not nifas. Right? That one is the istihada. Okay. Now, the kid it could be, I don't know, it's also mustahil for there to be ejaculation while you're praying. Right? Are you focused? If someone has some form of ejaculation while they're praying, that means what are they doing when they're praying? Hawla wala quwwata illa billah. Okay. Number 2, impurity falling on the person. So here you see this impurity falling on the person does not nullify your wudu. It nullifies your prayer, does not nullify your wudu. Right? So all you have to do is remove the najis and then restart your prayer. Right? So unless you immediately with subhanallah without carrying. Right? Let me just put a note here. Just be very, very clear. Right? Note. Right? Najis falling on a person does not nullify the wudu, but it just nullifies the prayer. I need to emphasize over and over again because people keep confusing this. Right? Nullification of the prayer does not mean your wudu is nullified. Wudu is nullified here, minor hadas. That's where wudu is nullified. Okay? Nah, right. So basically, so the example is like, if some dead animal fell on you while you were praying, like if you brush it off immediately. So for example, if I'm praying, and then like a dead fly would fall on my lap at that point in time, I saw it, and straight away I brush it off without carrying it, and you can't carry it, you can't pick it up, but I brush it off straight away. With subhanallah, my prayer is valid. I can continue praying. However, like if I'm praying, then I see on my clothing, there's a dead fly, and it's been there, it's crushed, and it's been there for quite some time on my prayer garment. Then I have to stop praying, change my prayer garment or wash my prayer garment, right? And then start all over again. I start all over again if there is najasa. Okay, I will speak about it about the issue of the baby with the najasa diaper. Right? It's because the baby carries najasa. The baby that has diaper that's walking around, and the toddler, right? That toddler has najis in his diaper. Right? So if that toddler sits on you, you count as someone carrying najis while praying. And I've seen women, they baby wear, right? They baby wear when they are praying. If they are very confident their baby has no najis, then go ahead and baby wear. But if you don't know if this baby has najis inside of its diaper, which high chances the baby has urine or something like that, then you are carrying najis the entire time you're praying. Can't do that, right? So the ask what's the solution? Solution is, if what we do in my family, right? If there's nobody around to look after your child while you are praying, right, then it is on you to get a what do you call it? A playpen. A playpen. And my family has a playpen in our house. And when the kids were babies, right? We will put the baby in the playpen. The baby is safe. Even if the baby cries and throws a tantrum, the baby is safe, right? In the playpen, inshallah, right? And you can pray, right? Without worrying the baby will come to you while you are praying. And I'll go into this, inshallah, the next lesson. I will coming to the end of our lesson. Now, right? Father-in-law is non-mahram. Yes, non-mahram. Father-in-law is non-mahram. You can never marry your father-in-law. The moment you marry your husband, right, and you consummate the marriage, right, you can never marry your father-in-law. He becomes a forever mahram, right? So even if like your husband passes away or you get divorced or whatever, right, that man who is your husband's, father, that means real biological father, that man is forever your mahram. Yeah. Okay. So when you sit leaning on the wall, right, sitting with your bum flat on the ground, you have to be firm, flat on the ground, and you fall asleep, it's okay. But if you're leaning and your bum gets lifted, if it gets lifted, then that's not, then that will nullify your wudu, right? So, but if your bum is be flat on the floor. So even if you stretch out your leg, right, as long as your bum is flat on the floor, the whole point is that any gas is prevented from escaping, right? So you can sit with your bum flat on the floor. Okay. Okay. If your nifas comes and goes within the period and then you pray after the hadas, it comes again. Right? Depending on all the prayers that you have missed. You to give me your mas'ala. You must give me the details of your question. I can't give you an answer right now. Okay? You can text me and give me the details of your question because I need to ask a few questions with regards to this. Um, Fur of inedible animals is najis, yes. Right? Cats walk around sajada and your telekung as you pray. Put atar on your sajada and telekung, the cat will not come. Any cat owner knows that the cats hate strong smells. You put atar everywhere. Okay, you put atar everywhere, and they will not come near you, inshallah. Okay, stepfather is not your mahram because your husband did not come from him. That means your husband is not his flesh and blood. Right, so he's not your mahram. Tamam? Okay, I'm gonna stop here because I have to pray. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. If you scratch and drink sujud, stop salat. Yes, must stop salat and wash off the najis. الفاتحة أن الله يزيدنا منافع وعامل الخاتم والسمعين هذا الهدى يصلي بك النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وأرواح معلمين مشايخنا والذوي علينا وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.